Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Hey, podcast listeners, Al Martin here. This is part 2 of my talk with David Collins, Chief Revenue Officer at Diwo. We talk decision intelligence technology. We get into more of it today. Talk about data being a swamp, bias or evidence detection, his monetization strategy, on and on. I hope you enjoy it. If you're a techie, you will. See you on the other side. Thank you. Let's dive into the technology for just a moment. When I'm thinking of what you're talking about, Diwo and decision intelligence, I can't help but think about the AI lifecycle, because I've been in development where I've developed AI in a studio around what we called here at IBM Watson Studio, et cetera. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of things to deal with within that AI lifecycle. Let's assume that we're beyond data fabric, data science, that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. but you still got data cleaning, mm-hmm. feature engineering, mm-hmm. model selection, mm-hmm. parameter optimization. I could go around the horn here. Mm-hmm. Do you have to? I presume you got to focus in all those areas, and that's part of the implementation that goes along with, taking on Diwo.
No, I mean to a certain extent, but if you think about all those practices are part of that Don Quixote pursuit of data excellence, right? Those mm-hmm. are going to keep going on. At the end of the day, I'm helping the human consume whatever analytic output the enterprise is capable of generating, right? So now, true, one of the things that we do very effectively is we can identify model drift and model decay, right? It's because we're making predictions based upon the output of those models. Then we're actually seeing the results of the predictions, and then we can tie back, okay, if the prediction was off, why was it off? And we do a pretty good job of identifying model drift and model decay. But the things like the data quality, the data cleansing, those kind of things, those are going to go on whether you're doing business intelligence, decision intelligence, augmented intelligence, something along those lines. So we encourage them, we cheer them on, but we don't try to inject ourselves in the middle of that, because you're right, from a life cycle perspective, that stuff is ongoing, right? And is, I consider it a sustainable function now, as opposed to, it used to be a project, right? But now it's a matter of sustainability. So most of our concern in that area is with respect to the models and the accuracy of the models, and perhaps having to retrain models, but not so much in the data itself. That kind of data ops stuff is going on with or without us. Is kind of our view on it.
Yeah, but you even said it yourself that it's a, how did you say it? It's a continual battle, something like that. And I agree with you. I mean, data is always a swamp, I think, in some sense. You're always cleaning it up. But I got to believe you're going in there a lot of times and helping with some of the cleaning to get your models right. I mean, how could that not be? If by definition that customers are always working to improve their data, mm-hmm. then by definition, if you're trying to make the right decisions on top of that data, you would have to somehow help them, or at least compartmentalize some of that data that's going to go along the decisions that you're trying to make. No?
Yes, to a degree. But, a lot of the groups that we're working with, they've already kind of, I don't think they've mastered it, but they've operationalized that, right? So, they've got their data science groups. When there is, new data capabilities, or the data quality has increased to an extent, then they've got to integrate back to their data scientists that are working on those models. With our customers, they're on that pursuit. They're always improving their data quality, or they've got new data capabilities. They've got to integrate with their data scientists. The data scientists have to make changes to the models, and then we're the ones that know when something when there's a hiccup in that universe, right? We're the first ones to know, because suddenly something doesn't make sense at the output level. So that's a continuous process, and we do get involved in that. That's a lot of where our customer support, customer sat is coming from, that side of it. But from an orchestration perspective, we're pretty good at managing the output of the models that we're seeing, and being able to translate that into a consumption metric for the end user to be able to use. And that's really the key to what we do. So that's an ongoing process, Al. You're 110% correct. They're always got something going on. There's always it's a continuous data ops process that people are going through. But that's, to a lot of that, that's their knitting. Where we get involved in, yeah, we need to identify model decay, model drift when the models aren't syncing with what they should be delivering to us, and we'll flag for that. But we don't have to dive in. They usually have teams that are like, yeah, we get it. We'll solve for that pretty quickly, to help us through that. Because our most important thing, right, is not getting into the models per se, or into the data science per se for the customer. Our most important thing is that those 300 users trust the recommendation that they're getting, and can see the logic, and evaluate the data, and they just start and they keep making decisions, right? We don't want people to stop making decisions. We want them to be confident in the analytic output that their CDO, their CAO, their data science teams, their data ops people are providing them.
Speaking of trust, do you have bias detection built in, like explainability, to show the consumer, hey, this is why we made the decision, and this is
Yes.
how we made the decision?
Yes, that's we call it evidence, which might be
Okay.
might be a politically correct way of dodging a bigger, longer conversation, right? But so, and if anybody copped out, I'll have to take the blame for that. But so for us, evidence is very much that, why the recommendation was generated in the terms that it was generated in, right? And so you get to see the insights that drove it. You get to see the logic that was applied. You get to see the data that was applied, and then more importantly, and this is a real critical element of creating that trust, and kind of um, facilitating that kind of trust going forward, is you get that recommendation, and you can slip right into a kind of a what if capability on that recommendation, and you can change the parameters and constraints, right? So you can play with it a little bit, right? And we use Databricks as our engine in our platform to be able to recalc and respin everything right away. So you apply different constraints. Maybe we need to go fire off a model, but we'll come right back and say, okay, if you want to adjust the recommendation, classic example, these 1,135 customers are at risk of churn. If you offer them a $100 content credit, maybe they'll still be your cable customer 30 days from now. Now, I may look at this and go, wow, $100, that's a lot. What if we just did 50? Or maybe we do 150. But if we do 100, we're predicting that 435 are going to come back. So I get to adjust that. I get to play that. I get to work with the evidence, so that I'm comfortable that when I say go. Now, all of our stuff typically goes into a downstream API, right? So when I say go, I make the decision. I'm comfortable that I'm making that decision because I had a chance to take a look at the evidence, and be comfortable with it.
Very good. Hey, what's the monetization strategy? I mean, is it subscription? Is it by model? I mean, you tell me.
It's a subscription by use case.
Subscription by
So,
use case. Okay.
yep. And we have a really kind of an interesting way of charging for it, which we think is remarkably equitable at the way this world's working. We charge by it's consumption based by the number of recommendations. So
Is
the
that the
more
number of recommendations chosen, or just the number of recommendations
generated and reviewed. So
generated and reviewed?
the more you use it, the the more you pay. So it works out really good because from our experience, once you deploy this and people get comfortable with the recommendations and the accuracy of the recommendations, uh, obviously the volume increases. And I tell my customers ahead of time, I said, look, I'm going to tell you right now, 6 months from now, you will have wished you'd bumped me up a little bit more on the volume, but yeah, we do it that way. And that way, it's also great when people are kind of walking before they run. They can
Mm-hmm.
kind of walk into this slowly, and then start sprinting.
Say more and bump me up So more
Yeah.
on the recommendations.
So, it's like we come up with a scale and we say, well, all right, for, X number of recommendations from 0 to, 500, it's X, and then X per recommendation. And from 500 to 1,000, it's Y. And everybody goes in trying to, keep their price low, which I don't blame them. I would too, on a new deployment. And then once they start using this thing and it goes viral, they go, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's redo that pricing schedule because I need to start at 5,000, not 500, and that kind of
Well,
thing.
but don't they ever challenge you on, hey, look, recommendations could be a dime a dozen. I just need one recommendation that's earth shattering, and I'd pay a fortune for that one. But some of them are just, they have no outcome to them. In other words, I'm
Uh,
not going to leverage that.
yeah, not so much in our use cases because most of what we're doing is ops related, right? So it's not research driven. It's not storytelling. It's hey, you know what? I'm responsible for pricing pharmaceuticals for a great big firm, and I got to make pricing decisions in a heavily regulated environment every day, right? And so that's a group of 50 people, 60 people, and so we just try to make them better at what they do every day. But there's no one decision that's a eureka. It's more like, hey, we started using this system, and suddenly our gross profits up 15%, right, or something along those lines.
I'd imagine you'd have, but you said earlier you had some questions, or you would find questions that they didn't think of asking yet. I imagine there's some eurekas in there someplace, no?
Yeah, but it's in context, right? So I've been the pricing guy for this line of drugs for 10 years. I know everything. And we're shooting things at him he never thought about or she never thought about. They couldn't, right? They couldn't comprehend
Mm-hmm.
that much that in the data. So we come back and say, look, did you ever think of marketing it, to these physicians, this group of physicians, instead of the one you've been going to all the time? That's a eureka moment, right? But it all gets rolled into the same bucket. And it is. It, Here's the problem with this whole last mile of analytics challenge that we've been chatting about here. you know I deliver analytic output in the form of dashboard and trust a human to turn it into business value, and that's a big ask. It's a really big ask, and especially when you think about what's happened in the last 5 years. We moved everything to a cloud, which was the right thing to do, and now we have unlimited, virtually unlimited CPU power. We can we can throw dashboards at that poor human being like it's going out of style. They're on the other side of the analytic output fire hose, but it's still a human that has to translate it into business value, and that's the breakdown. So we can be on that fire hose, right? And we can do the consumption for them, and we can sort it out into recommendations, and then we can when you get into those situations where there's lots of recommendations, we prioritize the recommendations by the predicted value of the recommendation. So I'm going through and I'm knocking them off as fast as I can.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't get that. I mean, that was actually a question I was going to have. You actually prioritize the recommendations by the projected value.
Exactly.
That it's so obviously you'd want to prioritize reverse down.
Yeah.
In other words, take the highest return on investment and go from there.
Exactly. And so every use case has their key KPIs and metrics bolted into it, right? And so that's our context, if you will. That one of the key ways in which we look at things is, um, today are we solving for gross profit? Today are we solving for gross revenue? Or today are we solving for um, some other kind of metrics? And so whatever that metric is, that's what's going to trigger the opportunities, the recommendations, and then the prioritization of those recommendations. So that as I look at these, I might have 20 of them, but I don't start working on the leanest one first. I see what the biggest one and the highest value is at the top of the
This will
chart.
seem like a weird question, but how often do you face the AI as magic issue? Meaning, I'm smarter than the AI. That you don't bring this stuff in here. Come on,
Every single day.
how do you get
Every
beyond
single
it?
day.
All right,
Well,
that's what I anticipated as the answer.
yeah, every single day, every single person. No, so um, well, in some cases, let's admit it, they are, right? And so in some cases, they are in some aspects better than the AI. until the AI has been working for a long enough period of time. And what we do is, as part of every human interaction, we store that in our context graphs, right? So we know if somebody approved something or rejected something or didn't agree with something or they amended something and why they amended it. So we're collecting all this, right? We're effectively capturing the intuition, and we're effectively capturing the experience, and we're storing that as knowledge in our context graphs, right? And then that's what our contextual intelligence is applying. So over the course of time, we're basically siphoning off a lot of human intuition and a lot of experience, because when you first deploy this, yeah, the AI is good, but it's not great until you can really enhance it with that human interaction. Then the flip side of the coin is that what we were talking about, evidence, right? I need to prove it to them. Right? They need to be able to click, go, yep, okay, I see it, I get it. All right, fine, you're right, I'll go on. Right? And if you don't show them evidence, you toast, because nobody is going to just look at the AI and say, "Oh, black magic, they got it right the first time. I'm good. Let's go." Right? It's never going to happen. But if you show them a recommendation, it's an it's an NLP type of solution. So I'm looking at it, I'm reading it in a natural language. It's very clear what it's asking for, and then I click and I see the evidence. All right, here's what I found in the data. Here's why their opportunity exists. Here's the insights. Here's the data points. Oh, by the way, if you want to play with these data points, you want to change the constraints, go ahead. Right, and so that experience is critical to getting people to consume the output, right? And not just produce insights, but consume the output and create a decision, right? And so when you leave, the last step in Diwo is you translate that recommendation into a decision. So we are driving decisions, and those decisions are creating incremental value for the business.
Look, I think that's the right answer. That's the way I would have answered it. The validation is that answer. Meaning, if we at IBM call it explainability, and we've spent a lot of investment on explainability to really open it up to say, hey, it's not magic. It's data science, or it's computer science for that matter. And you can see it right here. And this is how the decision was
You're
made.
100%
So
right. You're 100%. I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, it's a, um, it's, because at the end of the day, we got to remember, and we do this all the time. We have to remember that it's a human that has to form the decision. It's a human that's responsible for the decision, right? And so you got to appeal to their what they need to see and feel and hear. And so in our case, right, our UIs, we're domain agnostic. Our UIs are customized for every user, right? The decision flow is not customized for every user. I'm sorry, every use case, and
mhm.
customized for every. The decision flows are customized as well. So, look, uh, any two pharmaceutical companies don't make the same decision in the same area the same way, right? And if you don't model your decision flow off of how I like and the rest of my people in this organization make my decisions, then I don't trust you, right? And, I won't even get to the explainability part, because I already have my doubts. And so
Mhm.
there's a lot of emphasis on the human piece of the consumption of the output.
Very good. Hey, in summary, then, if we're to explain Diwo's differentiation, I mean, what do you guys do better than anyone else, and why do you do it better than anybody else?
So quite simply, we output an actionable and specific recommendation to a human in a natural language format that they can easily click on the evidence, review, understand the logic and the data behind it, and then they can immediately make a decision. And it doesn't sound like there's a lot going into it, but there's a phenomenal amount of code that got us to the point where we could deliver uh, a recommendation that was accurate, and most importantly, that a human could get comfortable with and approve or amend, and then immediately make a decision and create business value right away. So what we're best at, creating recommendations that allow people to make an immediate decision, and the output of our system is not a dashboard or graph or a chart, it's a decision.
Very good. Very good. Is there any question that I didn't ask you wish I would ask?
No, I thought you did a great job, man. I think you're
I
for
I
for for
passed the audition.
for well, I also remember you're operating at 72% capacity according to my decision intelligence right now, and,
Yeah.
and so I appreciate the fact that you're able to hang in there and do such a great job under the circumstances.
Don't worry. When I hang up, I'm going to collapse. That's how this works. You put everything you can into it, put on a good face, and then you go, "Oh my God, I
Yeah,
need to go to bed now."
yeah. Go take you have a well earned nap in your immediate
Yeah.
future. Is the way I look at it.
Well, it's probably going to happen too. Hey, so are you venture funded?
Yes. Well, so I jumped the gun a little bit. Bootstrapped up until now, a large bootstrap, kind of
Yeah.
a big number bootstrap up until now,
Yeah.
and then very soon in the next few days we'll PR our. I, I, I I call it a Series A, but it's when you bootstrapped with a. I'm not sure what to call it, but yeah, our first round of external investment will come in the
Very
next
good.
couple of days.
So is this all just about growing the business, growing revenue, or is there another definition of success as you move forward?
I think right now it's all about there's a lot of momentum behind decision intelligence, just as in general, and there's a the challenge for us is to keep the the definition of decision intelligence as pure as we can, right? You need you can be one of us and be a decision intelligence vendor, but you've got to be able to produce a recommendation. You've got to be able to drive decisions, right? I've got my friends that are in the BI space that are saying, "Well, we're decision intelligence too. We help you make decisions." Well, a quarter can help you make decisions, right? You can do a coin flip, and that'll help you make a decision. It doesn't make a quarter a decision intelligence tool, and so that's a lot of what we'll be doing from a it's a lot of go to market. We need growing the customer base, obviously, and growing the revenue stream is what investors are looking for. But for me personally, it's about also messaging in the marketplace. Decision intelligence is not glorified BI. Decision intelligence is really a genre in of itself.
Fantastic. You sure you don't want to finish off with some Diwo sales incentive plans or anything else like that? You know, I'm in sales myself. I'd love to have that conversation. I guess that's never going to
That's
happen.
not currently. Not if I want to keep this job.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But I will ask you one last question there. What do you do for fun?
You know, no shortage of fun for me. I'm fortunate enough that when the whole uh, pandemic hit, I managed to socially distance myself at a lake house, so I can go out and fish and swim and water ski, and when I don't want to do that, I can hop in the car and head over and play some golf. So no short
Nice.
of distractions for me as I when I decide I've had enough today of decision intelligence.
What lake, can I ask?
I'm on Merry Meeting Lake, which is in New Durham, New Hampshire, which
Nice.
is up here and surrounded by some mountains and forests and trees.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I uh, I had ambitions like you, but I waited too long. I waited before the lake house run up to go up. I made two offers on two houses, and I couldn't. They said either come here and sign like tonight, yes tonight, or you're not getting it. I'm like, the
Yeah.
hell with it then. I'm out. I gave up.
Absolute insanity. And I got to believe things have kind of slowed down just a tad. Last summer was insane, absolutely insane. You know, we would know that a house was going on the market not because somebody put a sign in front of it, because there was 25 cars with out of state license plates in front of it on a Friday afternoon. And so we go, okay, Saturday morning they're going on and they'll start taking offers and the bidding starts at, whatever. It
Yeah, it's
was,
crazy.
and by Sunday they had it closed. All right. It was just that nuts. Now it's subsequent to that. There's a lot of people who realize they should have cashed in their lottery ticket last summer.
Yeah. So what's going to happen now? Are all these people going to have to move back to the city, or at least some? Or do you think we're going to see a lot of foreclosures? What's
No,
your prediction?
from what I've been able to gather, most of the people that made their purchases up here weren't doing it with house money. I think
Hmm.
they were, you know, they were probably shrewd in the fact that they had to take some money out of the stock market that was soon to plummet anyway. This is a lot of second home, third home, type of folks up here,
Hmm.
which they may be a little bit more insulated. But I'm going to tell you, you keep having, 30, 30% declines in the Nasdaq for a long enough period of time, and
Yeah,
it'll have an impact.
exactly. Hey, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, Al, I appreciate you soldiering through like this. Great effort on your part. I
Yeah,
appreciate it
thanks.
a
No
lot.
problem. It was a pleasure. And I hope your wife remains COVID free
Yours
as
as
well.
well.
I
It's
think
a new,
they must be living
yeah, new
right.
strange breeding, but yeah.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Hey, thank you, listeners, for being here as well. Hit us on almartintalksdata@gmail.com. We always listen. Rate us. We appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. See you all. Bye bye.